Hey Lanians, happy Friday! I bet some of you are wondering, how's it going at Miss Lane's house? Well, this is a very good example of how it's going at Miss Lane's house. So, you know this beautiful book here? Do you think Miss Lane did that? Nope. That would be Hensley Louise. She says, "Ooh, Doug!" Ooh. Pretzel breathe. It's the key, right guys? All right, so I'm here to read to you chapter 3 called Searchlight. It's all about the dog. Now, I may have to do a few pauses because little Miss Hadley is deciding to make noises while I'm reading, so I apologize in advance. She's in there blowing up a balloon, and I can hear it. I hope you cannot, but I've asked her to be quiet, so we'll see how all this goes. All right, so let's start chapter 3. Let me just pull out these pages and stick them to the side. Searchlight. Here we go. It's easy to tell when it's winter in Wyoming. There is snow on everything, the trees, the houses, the roads, the fields, and even the people, if they stay outside long enough. It's not a dirty snow, it's a clean, soft snow that rests like a blanket over the entire state. The air is clear and crisp and the rivers are all frozen. It's fun to be outdoors and see the snowflakes float down past the brim of your hat and hear the squeak of the fresh powder on your boots. Winter in Wyoming can be the most beautiful time of year, if you're ready for it. Little Willie was ready. He had chopped enough wood. They would not be cold. He had stocked enough food. They would not go hungry. He had asked Lester at the general store how much food Grandfather had bought last year. Then he purchased the same amount. This would be more than enough because Grandfather wasn't eating very much these days. The coming of snow was as early as October also meant the coming of school. But Little Willie didn't mind. He liked school. However, his teacher, Miss Williams, had told Grandfather once, "Far as I'm concerned, that boy of yours has just asked too many questions." Grandfather just laughed and said, "How's he going to learn if you don't ask?" Then later, Grandfather had said to Little Willie, "If your teacher don't know, you ask me. If I don't know, you ask the library. If the library don't know, then you got yourself a real good question, boy." Grandfather had taught Little Willie a lot. But now, Little Willie was on his own. Each morning he would get up and make a fire. Then he would make oatmeal mush for breakfast. He ate it, Searchlight ate it, Grandfather ate it. He would feed Grandfather a spoonful at a time. After breakfast, Little Willie would hitch up Searchlight to the sled. It was an old wooden sled that Grandfather had bought from the Indians. It was so light and little that Little Willie could pick it up with one hand, but it was strong and sturdy. Little Willie rode along the sled, standing up, and Searchlight would pull him for 5 miles across the snow-covered countryside to the schoolhouse, which was located on the outskirts of town. Searchlight loved the snow. She would wait patiently outside the schoolhouse all day long, and Little Willie never missed a chance to run out between classes and play with his friend. After school, they would go into town of Jackson and run errands. They would pick up supplies at Lester's general store or go to the post office or to the bank. Little Willie had $50 in a savings account at the bank. Every month, Grandfather had deposited the money Little Willie had earned working on the farm. "Don't thank me," Grandfather would say. "You earned it. You're a good little worker, and I'm proud of you." Grandfather wanted Little Willie to go to college and become educated. All Little Willie wanted to do was grow potatoes, but he respected his grandfather enough to do whatever he said. If there were no errands to run that day, Searchlight would just pull Little Willie up and down Main Street. Little Willie loved to look at all the people, especially the city slickers, as Grandfather had called them. "Why, they don't know a potato from a peanut," Grandfather said, and their hands were as pink and soft as a baby's. You couldn't miss the city slickers. They were the ones who looked as if they were going to a wedding. A little before 6 each day, Little Willie would position his sled in front of the old church on Main Street. Today again he waited, eyes glued on the big church clock that loomed high overhead. Searchlight waited too, ears perked up, eyes alert, legs slightly bent, ready to spring forward. Bong! At the first stroke of 6, Searchlight lunged forward with such force that Little Willie was almost thrown from the sled. Straight down Main Street they went, the sled's runners barely touching the snow. They were one big blur as they turned right onto North Road, and they were almost out of town before the church clock became silent again. Go, Searchlight, go! Little Willie's voice sang out across the snowy twilight. And did Searchlight go? She had run this race 100 times before, and she knew the whereabouts of every fallen tree and hidden gully. This enabled her to travel at tremendous speed, even though it was getting dark and more dangerous. Little Willie sucked in the cool night air and felt the sting of wind against his face. It was a race, all right, a race against time, a race against themselves, a race they always won. The small building up ahead was Grandfather's farmhouse. When Searchlight saw it, she seemed to gather up every ounce of her remaining strength. She forged ahead with such speed that the sled seemed to lift up off the ground and fly. They were so exhausted when they arrived at the house that neither of them noticed the horse tied up outside. Little Willie unhitched Searchlight, and then both of them tumbled over into their backs in the snow and stared up at the moon. Searchlight had her head and one paw on Little Willie's chest and was licking the underside of his chin. Little Willie had a hold of Searchlight's ear, and he was grinning. The owner of the horse stood on the front porch and watched them, tapping his foot impatiently. That's the end of chapter 3. I hope you guys are staying warm today. It is so cold. I can't even take my girls on a walk. But it's a great day for movies and indoor crafts. Today, the girls and I made pattern necklaces. You guys probably don't want to make those, but we used some food coloring, and we dyed some noodles, and we used some yarn, and we made literally red, green, blue necklaces. I'll show you guys those later. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Keep yourselves busy, and remember to be safe, be smart, and be kind. Miss and love you. Bye.